Dad perfect events. I had just walked out of the attorney's office feeling like the luckiest man alive. My older brother Norman had left me everything: his ranch in Montana, a rental property in Denver, and nearly $750,000 in total assets. I couldn't wait to get home and tell my wife Dorothy and our son Eugene the incredible news. But when I opened the front door and heard their voices coming from the kitchen, something made me stop. I stood in the hallway listening, and what I heard made my blood run cold. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Harold, and I'm 59 years old. I spent 35 years working as an electrical foreman for a utility company in Colorado before planning to retire in the next couple years. My wife Dorothy and I have been married for 36 years. We have one son, Eugene, who's 34, and works as a financial advisor. He's married to a woman named Beverly, and they have 2 kids. My brother Norman was 7 years older than me. He never married, never had children. After serving in the military, he bought a ranch in Montana and spent the rest of his life there raising cattle. We weren't particularly close growing up because of the age gap, but in the last decade, we reconnected. I'd visit him at the ranch every summer, just the 2 of us. We'd fish, work on the property, and talk about life. Dorothy never came. She said Montana was too remote, too boring. Looking back, I think Norman saw things about my family that I was too blind to see. Norman passed away 3 months ago from a heart attack. He was 66 years old. The funeral was small, just me, a few of his ranch hands, and some neighbors from the area. Dorothy said she had a migraine and couldn't make the trip. Eugene said he had too much work with his struggling financial advisory practice. I didn't think much of the inheritance. Norman lived simply. I assumed everything would go to charity, or maybe to his longtime ranch hand Vernon, who had worked for him for 20 years. Then last week, I got a call from an attorney in Billings. "Mr. Harold Brennan, this is Judith Parker from Parker and Associates. I'm handling your brother Norman's estate. You need to come to Montana. There are some documents that require your signature, and there's a personal letter your brother left for you." A letter? I felt a pang of emotion. Norman wasn't the type to write letters. I flew to Billings 3 days later. Judith Parker was a sharp woman in her 50s with kind eyes. She sat me down in her office and opened a thick folder. "Mr. Brennan, your brother named you as the sole beneficiary of his estate." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" She smiled gently. "Everything. The ranch. That's 320 acres with a main house, guest cabin, and barn. One rental property in Denver that generates about $2,100 monthly in passive income. A savings account with $150,000, his investment portfolio currently valued at approximately $200,000, and various equipment and livestock worth about $50,000. I sat there stunned. Norman had never talked about money. I knew the ranch was valuable, but I had no idea about the rest. That's over $750,000 in total, I managed to say. Closer to $780,000, yes. Your brother was a very frugal man. He saved and invested wisely for decades. My hands were shaking. I couldn't process it. Judith reached into her desk and pulled out a sealed envelope. "He also left you this. He was very specific that you should read it privately after you learned about the inheritance." I took the envelope. My name was written on the front in Norman's familiar handwriting. "Take your time," Judith said. "I'll step out for a few minutes." She left the office. I stared at the envelope for a long moment, then carefully opened it. "Dear Harold, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't be sad. I lived a good life, and I'm at peace. You're probably in shock right now, learning about everything I left you. I know I never talked about money. That was intentional. I've learned over the years that money changes people, or rather, it reveals who they really are. Harold, I'm going to say something that might hurt, but I need you to hear it. I've watched you for the past 10 years, and I've seen how you live. You work hard, you provide, you sacrifice. But I've also seen how Dorothy treats you. I've seen how Eugene treats you. They take, and you keep giving because you think that's what love is. It's not. I never said anything because I knew you wouldn't listen. You would have defended them, made excuses. But now that I'm gone and you have this inheritance, I need to warn you. When people learn about money, they show their true colors. Watch carefully, Harold. Listen to what they say when they think you're not around. Don't tell them about this inheritance right away. Give it a few days. See how they react. See what they really think of you. If I'm wrong about Dorothy and Eugene, then I'll happily be wrong. Tell them everything. share everything, and live happily. But if I'm right, then you'll have the means to start over. You've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. It's time to take care of yourself. I believe in you, little brother. Whatever happens, know that you are worthy of respect and love. Real love. Your brother, Norman. I read the letter 3 times. My eyes were wet. Part of me wanted to dismiss it. Norman didn't know Dorothy and Eugene like I did. But another part of me, a part I had buried deep down, whispered that maybe Norman had seen something I refused to see. I folded the letter, put it in my pocket, and made a decision. I wouldn't tell anyone about the inheritance yet. I would go home, act normal, and watch carefully. This time, I'd pay attention to what was really being said. Judith came back, and we finalized the paperwork. I signed everything, received copies of all the documents, and flew back to Colorado that evening. When I got home around 8 p.m., Dorothy was watching television in the living room. She barely looked up from her show. How was the trip? Fine. Just some paperwork about Norman's estate. Did he leave you anything? I paused, remembering Norman's warning. Not much. The ranch goes to his ranch hand. Apparently some charity gets the rest. I just had to sign off on a few things as next of kin. Dorothy nodded, already looking back at the TV. That's too bad. I thought maybe he had something squirreled away. No, I said, just the ranch, and that goes to Vernon. I went to the bedroom, hid the documents in my old toolbox in the garage, a place Dorothy never went, and tried to sleep. But Norman's words kept echoing in my head. Watch carefully. Listen to what they say when they think you're not around. The next few days were strange. I found myself watching Dorothy differently, listening to her words more carefully. And the more I watched, the more I noticed things I had ignored for years. The way she talked about money constantly, how we didn't have enough, how we needed to be careful, how retirement was bleeding us dry, but she never seemed to cut back on her own spending. Her weekly salon appointments, her shopping trips with friends, the new furniture she wanted for the living room, the way she talked about me, little comments, almost offhand. Harold never was ambitious. Harold doesn't understand these things. Harold just sits around all day now that he's almost retired. Had she always talked like this? Or had I just stopped listening? On Thursday, Eugene came over for dinner. He and Beverly lived across town. Usually, they only visited when they needed something, money for the kids' activities, help with home repairs, free babysitting. During dinner, Dorothy brought up Norman. Your uncle Norman passed away, Eugene. Your father went to Montana to handle some paperwork. Eugene looked up from his plate. Oh yeah? Did he leave anything? Not really, I said, keeping my voice casual. The ranch goes to his ranch hand. Some charity gets the rest. Eugene frowned. He set down his fork and leaned forward. This was interesting. I'd never seen him show this much attention to family matters before. The ranch? That place has to be worth something. And Uncle Norman always seemed like he had money. He lived simply, but he drove a nice truck, had good equipment. I don't think there was much, I said. Huh. Eugene went back to eating, but I caught a look between him and Dorothy, quick, almost imperceptible. If I hadn't been watching for it, I would have missed it completely. It was the kind of look people share when they're planning something. After dinner, Eugene said he needed to talk to his mother about something. Boring financial stuff, Dad. You don't need to worry about it. And they went into the kitchen. That phrase hit me wrong. Eugene was a financial advisor. Since when did he exclude me from financial discussions? I stayed in the living room, pretending to read the newspaper. But I had learned something in my 35 years as an electrical foreman. When you're working on power lines, you listen for sounds that don't belong. You pay attention to details that seem off. So I got up quietly and moved closer to the kitchen doorway, staying just out of sight. Their voices were low, but I could hear them clearly. Are you sure there's nothing? That was Eugene, and his voice had an edge I'd never heard before. That's what he said. Everything goes to some ranch hand and charity. That doesn't make sense, Mom. Uncle Norman had no wife, no kids. Dad was his only family. Why would he leave everything to strangers? I don't know. Maybe Harold's not telling us everything. My heart started beating faster. They were questioning my honesty. You think he's hiding something? Dorothy's response made my stomach drop. I think your father isn't smart enough to hide anything important. He probably just doesn't understand the legal stuff. Maybe Norman had debts. Maybe the ranch is worthless. I stood frozen in the hallway. My wife of 36 years had just called me stupid, And my son, the son I'd put through college, the son whose business school tuition I'd paid for, hadn't disagreed, but it got worse. Well, that's disappointing, Eugene said, and I could hear genuine frustration in his voice. I was hoping maybe we'd finally get somewhere financially. You know, Beverly's been on my back about the kids' college funds, and my practice has been struggling. I thought maybe if Uncle Norman left something substantial. I know. I was counting on it too, Dorothy said. I thought we could finally take that trip to Europe, maybe renovate the kitchen. They were counting on my brother's death, counting on inheritance money like it was already theirs. What about Dad's pension, his retirement savings? Eugene asked. There's some there, but not as much as you'd think. He wasn't exactly a high earner, and with healthcare costs rising. Mom, we've talked about this before. When Dad passes, you'll be fine. His life insurance, the house, his 401k. But we need to start planning now, while we can. Still influence decisions. I felt sick. They were talking about my death like it was a business opportunity, something to plan for and profit from. I know, Dorothy said. I've thought about it, but what can I do? Divorce at this age? I'd get half of not much. Unless... Eugene lowered his voice even further. I had to strain to hear. What if you got him to update his will? Something that gives you more control over the assets? Dad doesn't understand financial planning. That's literally what I do for a living. I could help structure things properly. He already has a will. Get him to change it. Tell him it's for tax purposes or estate planning optimization. I can make it sound official, technical. Dad trusts me with financial advice. My hands were shaking. My own son, using his professional credentials to manipulate me. What if he gets suspicious? Dorothy asked. Eugene's answer chilled me to the bone. He won't. Look, I've been thinking about this for a while. Dad's getting older. Sometimes he seems confused about things, forgetful. If we document that properly, keep a diary of incidents, we could eventually make a case that he needs help managing his finances. You mean like power of attorney? Exactly. I could take over his financial decisions, make sure everything is properly managed and structured. For his own protection, of course. I stepped back from the doorway, walked silently to the living room, and sat down with my newspaper. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. A few minutes later, they came out of the kitchen, smiling and chatting about Beverly's new job like nothing had happened. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Dorothy, staring at the ceiling, replaying their conversation. Norman was right. He had seen what I had refused to see for years. My wife didn't love me. She loved my paycheck, my pension, my life insurance. My son saw me as a future inheritance, not a father. Worse, he was using his professional credentials and education I had paid for, to plan my financial manipulation. The next morning, after Dorothy left for her part-time job at the department store, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and a thought strategically. I'd spent decades troubleshooting complex electrical systems. You don't just react when you find a problem. You analyze it, gather data, plan your approach. This was no different. I made some calls. First, I found a family law attorney named Gerald Murphy who came highly recommended for divorce cases. I made an appointment for the following Monday. Then I called Judith Parker in Montana. Judith, I need your advice. I'm considering divorce. How do I protect the inheritance Norman left me? She explained that in Colorado, inherited property is considered separate property, not marital property, as long as I kept it completely separate from any joint accounts or assets. I should not put any of the inherited money into accounts Dorothy had access to. I should not put her name on any of the properties. If you're serious about divorce, she said, do not tell your wife about the inheritance until the divorce is finalized. Once she knows, she may try to claim you concealed assets during the marriage. But I just received the inheritance. We were still married when Norman died. The timing actually helps you. You inherited after his death, and you're filing for divorce shortly after. There's no commingling of assets, no contribution from your wife to any of the inherited properties. Your position is strong. Over the next week, I prepared methodically. I met with Gerald Murphy and retained him for the divorce. I opened new bank accounts at a different bank across town. I rented a safe deposit box and put copies of all Norman's estate documents in it, along with the original letter. I also bought a small digital voice recorder, the kind that looks like a pen. I kept it in my shirt pocket whenever I was home. Colorado is a one-party consent state, so recording conversations I was part of was completely legal. I needed to document the truth, to have proof of what I was hearing. Dorothy continued her little campaign. "You've been distracted lately, Harold. Maybe you should see a doctor about your memory. Did you forget to pay the electric bill again?" She was building a narrative that I was declining, that I couldn't manage things properly, but I was more alert than I'd been in years. Eugene came over twice more in the following weeks. Each time, he and Dorothy found reasons to talk privately in the kitchen. Each time, I positioned myself where I could hear and record what I could. Eugene was getting more aggressive in his planning. On one recording, I captured him saying, "Mom, I've been doing more research on this. If Dad shows signs of cognitive decline, you could petition for conservatorship of his finances. With my professional standing as a financial advisor, I could be appointed as co-conservator. Then we'd have complete control over his assets. What if he fights it? With what I know about elder law, and with proper documentation of his confusion and poor judgment, it wouldn't be hard to prove he needs protection. I just need you to start keeping better records of when he seems off. Write down dates, specific incidents. Make it look like a pattern. I sat there listening to my own son plan to have me declared mentally incompetent. The betrayal cut deeper than anything Dorothy had said. I had sacrificed to put Eugene through business school. I had been proud when he started his financial advisory practice. Now he was using that knowledge against me. Eugene's voice continued through the recorder. "The beautiful thing is, once we have conservatorship, we can restructure all his assets for better management. Move everything into accounts I control. Dad would never know the difference. What about when he dies? Then everything transfers exactly how we want it to. No complicated. Probate, no surprises. Clean and simple. They were planning my financial death while I was still alive. 2 weeks after my trip to Montana, I had everything ready. The divorce papers were prepared, my new accounts were established. I had 6 different recordings documenting their schemes, but I wanted one final test, one more piece of evidence. I chose a Saturday morning. Dorothy was making breakfast, and Eugene was coming over to help me look through some financial paperwork, his latest excuse to get his hands on my documents. I walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table. "Dorothy, I need to tell you something." She turned around, spatula in hand. "What is it?" "I lied to you about Norman's estate." Her eyes widened slightly, but she recovered quickly. "What do you mean?" "Norman didn't leave everything to his ranch hand in charity. He left everything to me, the ranch, the rental property in Denver, $150,000 in savings, a $200,000 investment portfolio, plus equipment and livestock. Total value is about $780,000. Dorothy's face went through several expressions: shock, then rapid calculation, then a forced smile. I could practically see her mind working, recalculating everything she and Eugene had discussed. "Harold, that's wonderful. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because Norman warned me not to." "Warned you about what?" "About you. About both of you." I took the digital recorder out of my pocket and set it on the table. "I've been recording your conversations with Eugene for the past 2 weeks. Her face went completely pale. The spatula clattered to the floor. I pressed play. Her voice came through the speaker, crystal clear. "I think your father isn't smart enough to hide anything important." I let it play for several seconds, then skipped ahead to Eugene's voice. "If Dad shows signs of cognitive decline, you could petition for conservatorship of his finances." I stopped the recording and looked at my wife of 36 years. She was standing frozen, her mouth slightly open. "You and Eugene were planning to have me declared incompetent," I said quietly. "You were going to take control of my finances, manage my assets however you wanted, and wait for me to die so you could split whatever was left. Harold, you're misunderstanding." "I'm not misunderstanding anything. I've been willfully blind for 36 years, but I'm not blind anymore." The front door opened. Eugene walked in, saw us in the kitchen, and immediately sensed something was wrong. He took in the scene, his mother's pale face, my calm demeanor, the recorder on the table. "What's going on?" "Your father has lost his mind," Dorothy said desperately. "He's talking about divorce, and he's been recording private conversations." Eugene looked at me with the calculating expression I now recognized. "Dad, what is this about? Why are you recording family conversations?" I played him the recording of his own voice, the one about conservatorship and restructuring my assets. His professional mask slipped completely. For a moment, I saw raw panic in his eyes. You took that out of context, Eugene stammered. What context makes it acceptable to plan having your own father declared mentally incompetent to steal his money? Eugene started to argue, then stopped. He looked at his mother, then back at me. His financial advisor training kicked in, and I could see him trying to regain control of the situation. Uncle Norman left you everything, didn't he? He said, his voice steadying. How much? That's no longer any of your concern. I took an envelope from my pocket and set it on the table next to the recorder. These are divorce papers. I'm filing on Monday. I've already met with an attorney. The inheritance from Norman is my separate property under Colorado law. You have no claim to it. Our marital assets, the house, the joint accounts, my pension, will be split according to state law. Dorothy finally found her voice. You can't do this. We've been married for 36 years. And for how many of those years? Have you actually loved me, Dorothy? Or was I always just a paycheck to you? She didn't answer. That silence told me everything I needed to know. Eugene stepped forward, and for a moment I saw the manipulative financial advisor he'd become. Dad, let's talk about this rationally. You're making emotional decisions based on misunderstandings. As your son, and as a financial professional, I can help you think through this clearly. The way you plan to help me by having me declared incompetent? That's not... I was just discussing hypothetical planning scenarios with Mom. Estate planning is complex. I was trying to protect your interests. By taking control of my assets, by ensuring proper management and structure for your financial security. Even now, even caught red-handed, he was using his professional language to justify betrayal. I stood up and looked at both of them. You know what the saddest part is? I would have helped you both if you had just asked. Eugene, if your practice was struggling, we could have talked about it. Dorothy, if you wanted to travel or renovate, we could have made plans. But instead, you chose to scheme behind my back and plan my financial manipulation. Dorothy stepped forward desperately. Harold, let's talk about this. I was just frustrated. I didn't mean those things. You know how Eugene is? He puts ideas in my head, makes everything sound so complicated. Don't blame this on me, Eugene snapped at his mother. You're the one who's always complaining about money, always talking about what we don't have. And just like that, they turned on each other. Dorothy accused Eugene of manipulating her with his professional authority. Eugene accused Dorothy of pressuring him to find solutions to their financial problems. They argued right there in the kitchen, revealing more of their true characters than even the recordings had captured. I watched them for a moment, then picked up my recorder and the divorce papers. I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight. My attorney will be in touch with both of you. I suggest you get lawyers. I walked out, got in my car, and drove away. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. The divorce took 4 months. Dorothy hired an expensive attorney who claimed I had hidden assets, that the inheritance should be considered marital property because Norman was family. Gerald Murphy systematically dismantled every argument. The inheritance was clearly separate property received after Norman's death. We had no joint investments in Norman's ranch or properties. The recordings, while not used directly in court, established a pattern that made the judge completely unsympathetic to Dorothy's claims. Eugene tried a different approach. He attempted to have me evaluated for competency, claiming concern for my mental state and decision-making ability. That backfired spectacularly when Gerald presented the recordings of Eugene's own voice, planning to use false competency claims for financial manipulation. The judge was not amused by a financial advisor attempting to abuse elder protection laws for personal gain. In the end, Dorothy got the house and half of our joint retirement accounts. I kept my pension and the entire inheritance from Norman. Eugene stopped speaking to me entirely after the divorce was filed. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Beverly was furious with him when she learned about his schemes. She hadn't known about any of it and was humiliated when the truth came out. Last I heard, they were in intensive marriage counseling, and Eugene's practice had lost several major clients who didn't appreciate being associated with his family manipulation scandals. Dorothy had to sell the house and move into a small apartment. Without my income supporting her lifestyle, she had to make significant changes. I can't say I feel sorry for her. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I moved to Montana. The ranch was everything Norman had described, and more. 320 acres of rolling grassland with mountain views, a comfortable 3-bedroom house that needed some updating but was solid and well built, and a big red barn where Norman's horses still lived. I kept Vernon on as ranch manager. He knew the property better than I ever would, and he'd been loyal to Norman for 20 years. I gave him a substantial raise and offered to let him and his wife live in the guest cabin rent-free. They accepted gratefully. The first few months were challenging. I was 60 years old, starting over in a new state, knowing almost no one. There were nights when I sat on the porch watching the sunset over the mountains and wondered if I'd made the right choice. But each morning brought new purpose. I started making friends slowly. The neighbors were genuine people, ranchers and retirees who waved when they drove past and brought casseroles when they heard I was new in town. I joined a poker group that met every Wednesday at the local bar. I started fishing. Again, something I hadn't done since my visits with Norman. One afternoon, about 8 months after I moved, I was in town picking up supplies when I ran into a woman at the hardware store. She was trying to reach something on a high shelf, and I offered to help. Her name was Phyllis. She was 60, a widow, and had moved to Montana 5 years earlier after her husband passed. She had kind eyes and laughed easily at my jokes. We got coffee, then dinner, then coffee again. I'm not going to say I found love at 60. That sounds like something from a movie. But I found genuine companionship. I found someone who liked me for who I was, not for what I could provide or what I might leave behind. We've been seeing each other for 6 months now. Nothing rushed, nothing complicated. Just two people who enjoy each other's company and respect each other's independence. Last week I visited Norman's grave. It's on a small hill at the edge of the ranch property, overlooking the valley he loved. I sat on the grass and talked to him for a while. Told him about Phyllis, about learning to manage the ranch, about the peace I'd found. "You were right about everything, Norman," I said. "You saw what I couldn't see, and you gave me the means to protect myself. Thank you for that." The wind rustled through the grass, and I could almost hear him chuckling. I'm 60 now. I might have 20 good years left, maybe more if I'm lucky. I'm not going to waste a single one on people who don't value me. I'm not going to spend my time waiting to die so someone else can inherit my assets. I'm going to live, really live, for the first time in decades. Norman's letter is framed on my wall now, right next to a photo of us from our last fishing trip together. Every morning when I have my coffee, I read that final line. You've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. It's time to take care of yourself. Thank you, brother. I finally understand. If you're listening to this, and you're in a situation like mine, where you give and give while others only take, I want you to know something important. It's not too late. It's never too late to choose yourself, to demand respect, to walk away from people who see you as nothing more than a financial opportunity. You deserve love, real love, not manipulation disguised as family loyalty. And if the people in your life can't give you that, then maybe it's time to find people who can. Trust me, the peace you'll find is worth more than any inheritance they think they're entitled to. Sometimes the people closest to you see your success not as something to celebrate, but as something they're entitled to share. The difference between love and manipulation is simple. Love wants you to thrive, manipulation wants you to provide.